What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix for Week 8 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop here with your Week 8 final depth chart update. One game down for this week already. The Hamilton Tiger Cats defeating the Ottawa Red Blacks last night in what was a wild game that featured just about a bit of everything. Except maybe not a whole lot of offense. Quite a few fantasy disappointments in that game, but you've got two other games this week to still make up for it with your lineup, so let's try to get some of those guys that are going to put you the big points up on the board. And a lot of times it comes down to the depth charts, and that's what I'm here to do today, is go through and touch on the notables from those. We've got Toronto and Montreal, and we've got BC and Saskatchewan, both coming on Friday night, so make sure you set the rest of your lineups before those games. And let's touch on the depth charts, and let's start off with the Toronto-Montreal game and go to the Argos first. Most notable this week is McLeod Bethel-Thompson starting at QB for the Toronto Argonauts. Nick Arbuckle injured, not ready to go this week, so Bethel-Thompson gets the start. Antonio Pipkin will be his backup this week. How has Bethel-Thompson done so far this season? In the first game of the year, he got the start, put up 24.6 points, and then got the start in week number 2, put up just 2.8 before getting pulled for Arbuckle against the Bombers in that game. He was a backup for the next couple of weeks, and the only time he's really gotten in there for playing time since was week 5 against Hamilton. He did come in later in that game when Arbuckle was struggling and put up 8.4 points in, I believe, a bit over a quarter of play there. So Bethel-Thompson comes in at $9,882, which is, I believe, just under what Arbuckle comes in as. He's up and down. He's hit and miss. I don't know what to make of Bethel-Thompson as an option this week. I think Montreal's got a pretty decent defensive line, but they can give up some yards to pass as well. Bethel-Thompson can be a good quarterback when he's on his game. But when he's not, he also can have some disastrous games like that week 2 against Winnipeg. So I'd say be cautious on Bethel-Thompson this week because you really don't know what type of performance you are going to get from him. But if you didn't go for one of the cheaper options at quarterback in Wednesday's game, he is the cheapest option available to you now. So maybe not a bad play there. At running back, we've got John White and DJ Foster once again in a timeshare spot. Expected to be kind of the same as the past couple of weeks. You know, White gets the bulk of the carries. Foster gets a little more involved in the passing game. At wide receiver, DeVaris Daniels, Eric Rogers, Ricky Collins Jr., Curley Gittins Jr., and Chandler Worthy gets a start at wide receiver. He's been handling kick returns the past couple of weeks with Daniel Braverman being out. Braverman is out again this week, so Chandler Worthy should be handling the kick return duties and should be getting in as a starter at wide receiver now. He was a backup the past 2 weeks at the receiver slot, so now he gets first team reps there. In the past 2 games, he's put up 5 points. He's put up 8.5. And now if he gets in for a full workload in that offense, he should be able to hit you 9.3 points at least, which is what you need to get 2.5 per thousand, which I mark as full value. So I do think Chandler Worthy is a good option as a cheaper receiver now that he's in at a starting role. With him taking a starting spot, Dejon Brissett is into a backup role and should not be considered for fantasy play this week. Notably for the Argos, they'll be missing a couple big pieces on defense. Cameron Judge and Henoch Muamba, a couple of their linebackers, will be out this week. They left last game due to injury. They are not ready to go. They'll also be missing Richards in the defensive backfield. So there's a couple pieces injured on defense for the Argos. At the linebacker spot, Dexter McCoyle and Vontae Diggs will be filling those spots, which those two guys aren't slouches either. So they do have some good depth there, but some big holes for the Argos this week on defense. Looking at the Montreal side of things, wide receiver Quan Bray is back in the lineup this week for Montreal. He's missed the past 2 games for the Alouettes and is finally back in the lineup. In 3 games this year, he's averaged 9 fantasy points a game. He comes in at $7,000, and you'll need about 17.5 to get full value out of him. In the games he did play, he was kind of the least targeted receiver in that Montreal offense. So even though he's back in the lineup, I would still use some caution on Quan Bray. And with him back in the lineup, Dante Absher is out. So if you were looking for maybe a value play from him after he put 6.6 up last week, he is not in the lineup this time around. Also not in the lineup for the Alouettes is Mario Alford, who is out on the injured list. Rashad Ross will get his first CFL start, I believe, handling returns in his place. He'll also line up as the backup to Eugene Lewis at wide receiver. So new guy handling the kick returns for Montreal this week. I would stay away from him until we see how he performs in that role. At quarterback, it's the usual Vernon Adams Jr., running back William Stanback, and then at receiver, Eugene Lewis, BJ Cunningham, Jake Weineke, Quan Bray, and Keon Julian Grant are your starters there for Montreal. From what I could tell, no noticeable changes on the defensive side of the ball for them. So you've got some talented pieces there on the Alouettes offense. They just haven't gotten it together this year. Facing an Argos defense that is missing some of their best players, maybe this is a day for Montreal to get back on track through the passing game with some big plays here. So might be worth taking a shot on one of them. I have Eugene Lewis in my lineup personally, and I'm hoping for another big day like he put up against Ottawa a couple weeks ago. And then getting into the Saskatchewan and BC game, let's start with the Riders. Still no Shaq Evans. Still no Jordan Williams-Lambert at receiver. Cody Fajardo will start at quarterback. William Powell at running back. And the same crew at wide receiver. Keon Schaefer-Baker, Ricardo Lewis, Braden Lenius, Kyron Moore, and Mitchell Picton. Moore, always the most targeted guy seemingly in that offense. And Schaefer-Baker certainly making a name for himself in the past couple of weeks and is a great option at a cheaper salary of around, I believe he comes in at $32.49 is his salary, especially with still missing Jordan Williams-Lambert, who would possibly take some targets away from him. On the defensive side of the ball, they are getting a big piece back in defensive back Ed Gainey, who missed the past couple of games. That should help shore things up in the defensive backfield a little bit for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but they will still be without defensive lineman A.C. Leonard this week, who is serving the final game of his suspension and should be back in the lineup, I would assume, next week. Also for the Riders, returning kicks, presumably Jamal Morrow will be handling that once again this week, unless they decide to change things. But I would imagine they don't, because he's done fairly well at that spot. For the BC side of things, this gets a little bit interesting. Shaq Cooper is back in the lineup. He is on the depth chart, but he is not listed at running back this week. He is listed as just the punt return, kick return spot. Looks like Chris Rainey is out this week, so they have Cooper slotting in there, but they have James Butler listed as the only running back in the running back slot on the depth chart. Now, it's hard to truly make sense of how this is going to go when the game comes on Friday, because this is something BC, I think, has done all season long, where they only have one running back in the running back spot on the depth chart. You know, Chris Rainey has gotten in on some rushing plays and has just been listed as the returner. If Cooper is healthy enough to do a fine job in the return game, I don't see how he doesn't get a couple of reps there on offense. So I would say be cautious with either BC running back this week. Butler has had a couple good weeks at a cheap value. Cooper has kind of been underwhelming for his price point a little bit. Most of this is due to, this being a running back group that doesn't get a ton of touches. It's a very pass-heavy BC team. So there's not going to be a lot of ball to go around in the rushing game to begin with for BC. I think if you get close to the goal line, it's probably Michael Riley, take it in himself territory. You also now have a timeshare perhaps between Cooper and Butler. And you're also facing the Riders defense, which is best in the league against the run. So I would say be cautious, and personal recommendation, maybe stay away from both BC running backs this week, unless you're really looking for a salary save and want to take a shot at, I believe, $3,500 James Butler, or around that mark. Also on the BC depth chart, Lamar Durant is back listed on here for the first time in a couple weeks. He has missed the past few games, has not played since week number 4 against Ottawa. He is listed as the backup to Keon Hatcher, though, and is listed as questionable. So I wouldn't put Durant in your lineup. I wouldn't bank on him being in your lineup this week. And just given depth chart shenanigans, I would maybe be a little bit more cautious on Keon Hatcher. He seems like a great value play. He's hit his value in both games he's played this year. But if Durant does go and is ready to play, perhaps he takes that spot and you're not getting the production out of Hatcher that you think you're going to get. We kind of saw that last night on Wednesday with Jackson Bennett listed as the starter, Malik Irons as backup, Sean Thomas Erlington as the third string at running back for Hamilton, where we all thought he was doubtful, and then he was ready to play, and Irons still got a couple touches, but Bennett did not. So just be a little bit cautious on Durant and Hatcher in that whole situation. Also marked as questionable on the depth chart, Brian Burnham, once again. I think this is 3 straight weeks. He has played the last 2 games as well. I would anticipate him playing again this week. And same thing with Michael Riley, who will be marked as a question mark, I think, every single week this season, even though we expect him to play at this point week in and week out until we really see him struggling injury-wise once again. So, couple of changes there from the BC offense. I really like Lucky Whitehead as an option. I wish they would, with Rainey out, give Whitehead the return duties, because that's an even more of a lock for your lineup in that case. But with a couple questionable receivers, and who knows what's going on with the run game, I do like Lucky Whitehead, and I like Javon Katoy as options for BC this week. Is kind of the 2 options for BC I'm personally leaning towards, and I do have Lucky Whitehead in my lineup as we speak. So those are your depth chart updates for the final 2 games of the week. Make sure you get those lineups in before the games start on Friday, because you want to make sure you lock them in before you run out of options for you. Best of luck with the rest of week number 8. I will be back early next week to recap week number 9, or to recap week 8, and get you all set for week number 9. Quick note for next week, first game of the week is on Tuesday, so I will try to get all of the positional previews out for you on Monday, and then I will have the depth chart update for that Tuesday game out as well to help you get all set for the first game of the week. Do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you liked, what you didn't. If you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section, tweet them at me, at CooperTrooper42. It starts with a K, the link to it's in the video description. And if you want to play CFL Fantasy alongside myself and other viewers, check out the video description as well. There is a link in there to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix League over on the official CFL Fantasy site. Play alongside myself and other viewers every week throughout the 2021 CFL season. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. Best of luck in week 8. Enjoy Friday night's games, and I'll talk to you in week number 1. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.